information. Should you choose to accept it.
It's a quest. It's a quest for fun.
Well, The Rock says, why don't we just cut right to the chase?
Okay, now he wants to get together. Well, he wants to talk.
I want you to do me a favor. I want you to tell all your friends about me.
It's showtime, folks! What are you?
Hello there. Welcome to And I Quote, the weekly show where we bring in content creators of all shapes and sizes from any and all corners of the nerd universe. We find out more about them and find out what plans they have for the future. I am your host, Ryan of Nerd Culture, and make sure you are sharing this video with all of your friends, all your family. We would love to hear from you. So our guest this week is a young man who has a resume that's a mile long. He has been everywhere, done pretty much everything when it comes to writing crime fiction, adventure, pulp, you name it, he's done it. Please welcome the one and only writer known as Bobby Nash. Bobby, welcome to the program. How are you today?
I am wonderful, Ryan. Thanks for having me. Been a long time since anybody's called me young. I kind of enjoyed that.
Well, yeah. I mean, age is just a number. Am I right?
Exactly.
It's just a number. And by the way, if you have any questions for our guest, author Bobby Nash, feel free to leave them in the comments section, leave them in the chat. Our producers are going to be monitoring it as we go throughout the course of the show. We will bring them up on screen. We'll get to your questions ASAP. But in the meantime, sit back, relax, and enjoy this question. So, Bobby, to kick things off, what were some of your favorite books or writers growing up?
Oh, good question. The very first novel I ever read, or was called The Snowbound Six. It was by a writer named Richard Martin Stern. And I wrote it. My mother was an avid reader, and this was in the 70s, and she had those Reader's Digest collections, which was multiple books and, combined in one hardback. And I fell in love with this story because it was an adventure serial where it's a plane crash and these people are stuck on a mountain and they have to get off the mountain because the storm's coming in. And I just fell in love with that adventure aspect of it. And it, that has kind of followed me because I still that's the kind of stuff I still read and write is these adventures, action heavy things. And then after that, I got into comics. Comics was a big inspiration for me getting into reading, because I liked the cartoons. I watched Spider-Man on TV and things like that. But then, when I realized, oh my God, there are books with Spider-Man in them, that was a big thing for me. So those, I started from there, and then, so read a lot of comics, read things like, got into, as I was going on, Hardy Boys and Encyclopedia Brown, and they put out after Star Wars, they put out some Han Solo novels.
Mm.
Those were a big deal for me as a kid. So things like that. Yeah.
Interesting. Now, when did you specifically decide to become a writer yourself?
When I realized I would never make it as a comic book artist. that was the dream of growing up as a kid. When I realized that drawing comic books was a job, and I was like, oh, that's the job I want. Well, it turns out I'm not quite good enough to have that job. But I started writing stories to have things to draw. And I was trying to do both. I was writing my stuff and drawing it. I was writing stuff for other people to draw. And, wasn't really making any traction with either. And actually, I had a friend who kind of set me down and says, okay, tough love time. He goes, you're splitting your focus. You need to pick one, and focus on it, and you'll get better at it. But right now you're splitting your focus so much. You're not great at either one. And I guess it was just one of those days where I wanted to hear it and it made sense. And so I decided to focus on the writing side of things. I still draw, but not professionally. So I focused on the writing side of things, and suddenly found myself, writing and being paid to write comic scripts for publishers, which was cool. And then after doing that a couple of years, I was like, I'm going to write a novel. So I did that. And my first novel was horrible, but I finished it, and as you know, the greatest motivation to do it again is finishing something,
Mm-hmm.
I proved I could do it. Now I wonder, can I do it again? And so I started on a second novel, which was different. The first one was a science fiction novel.
Mm-hmm.
The second one was a crime fiction story that eventually became Evil Ways, which was my first published novel. So.
Wow, that is truly extraordinary. Questions are already coming in. Terry MacGyver wants to know, hey, Bobby, do you have a character in mind before putting pen to paper, or do they take on a life of their own while you are writing?
Oh, that's a good question. It could vary. It could go either way. When I'm doing a series, a lot of times I know, like, especially if I'm on book 2, 3, whatever, by then I know who the characters are, or at least the main characters. But sometimes there have been times when I did a lot of anthology work, and I still do anthologies from time to time, but where you're doing short stories, with characters that are either not yours or in situations that you didn't create or come up with. And there have been times where I'm like, I have no idea what to do, but I've got to get it done. And so there was one in particular, I was stuck. I couldn't come up with a compelling enough story. And so I just decided to start writing. And what I did was I focused on a character that I created. It was just a guy. Started out with him on the street, walking down the street, and then seeing what happened to him. So getting to know that guy led that guy to get into trouble, which is what brought the character I was, the book was about into the story. And the story kind of fell together by following this one guy and getting to know him. And so that helped bring in the hero of the piece. And so in that case, just picking a character and going, I had no idea up front. When I go into things like a series, like with Snow or Domino Lady or the Sheriff Myers or whatever, because I know the characters, because we're multiple books in, I kind of go in knowing, okay, what's going to happen to these guys or these characters this time? I usually try to give something, so there's something for them to do that's not just, you've got to solve this case, but maybe something else is going on too. And I get ideas and scenes in my head of things I want the characters to go through.
Simply extraordinary. Thank you very much for sharing that with us. Terry, thank you for the question. Once again, we're talking with crime fiction writer extraordinaire known as Bobby Nash. You got any questions for him, leave them in the comments, drop them in the live chat. We are going to get to him as we go along with the show. Thank you for those of you who are watching us, who are chiming in the comments. Thank you so much. Charles F. Millhouse is here with us. Brian Wensloff of Reels and Heels. Speaking of wrestling, he's in the house as well. Brian, thanks for being with us. So, Bobby, what would you say are some of the biggest rewards of being a writer?
Ooh. Well, I love creating. I love creating the stories. I love getting to doing this. So there's a lot of fun in that. If I wasn't doing it professionally, I would probably do it as a hobby. Mm-hmm. It would probably be simpler as a hobby. Certainly a lot less time consuming. But outside of the fun that is to create the stories, the biggest bonuses for me is I have met some incredible people that I might not have got to meet through it without this job. Mm-hmm. I've gotten to know a lot of people either through working with them on books or meeting them at conventions or whatever, things like that. I've made some incredible friends doing this, so there's a lot of that. So that's a huge bonus that I've made these relationships with people because of this. And, I've gotten to travel a lot. Traveling is fun, It's weird. Sometimes I'll, like, if I was like, I want to travel, and I'll talk myself out of it because, you can't afford that or you can't do that, But, you want me to travel to a convention? No problem, So I've gotten to travel quite a bit, and it's been fun.
An incredible journey, to be sure. Brian Wensloff chimes in. He asks, What are some of your favorite characters from literature? Mine is Harry Bosch, according to Brian Wensloff.
Harry Bosch is a very good pick. I absolutely adore the Bosch novels. The series is awesome as well, but I absolutely am a huge fan of the novels, and I've read them all. They're excellent, and I recommend anything Michael Connelly has written. Those are wonderful. Let's see. I'm trying to think. In recent years, Alex Kava does a series that features an FBI agent named Maggie Odell, and she teams up with a guy who uses rescue dogs named Ryder Creed. The two of them have these crime fiction adventures together. Those are excellent reads. My buddy Van Plexico has written 2 novels with these thieves in the 1960s, which are really fun. Vegas Heist and Miami Heist. And I understand they're doing a 3rd one. So those are quite fun, and I just really, really liked those. God, what else? I'm blanking. It's terrible. Today, I'm currently reading King City by Lee Goldberg, which is a really good crime thriller. And yeah, so I'm just all over the place. But I still read some comics. I still pick up comics here and there. If you're looking for great crime comics, I absolutely recommend Criminal.
Yes,
by Brubaker and Phillips.
Yes, I've read 1 or 2 of those, and I also read, I believe it's called Pulp that they did most recently, which was a Western. And not to take the attention away from you, Bobby, because you're the star here this week, but I like Westerns. Westerns are great. And Brubaker and Phillips, that's a great creative team right there. So thanks for pointing that out. Yeah. Criminal, what do they got now? Like 15 or 20 in that series of Criminal?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah. And they're doing a new one that started last year called Reckless, which are standalone graphic novels. I think there's 3 of them, and there's one more coming that is a very action heavy, kind of pulpy crime drama stuff. Really good.
Ooh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to check that out at some point or another. Thank you, Brian, for the question. Really appreciate it. And Brian chimes in. He wants to wish us all happy Batman Day, everyone. It is happy Batman Day. So speaking of which, since that kind of goes into a question here, Brian, thanks for bringing this up. So, Bobby, here's the question. Favorite Batman comic, movie, TV series, et cetera, et cetera. Just throw out some of your favorite things about the character simply known as the Dark Knight or the Caped Crusader if you're on the West Coast.
Yeah. When I started reading Batman, my first intro to Batman was probably like a lot of people my age, was the Super Friends. It was a bit of a culture shock when I read my first Batman comic. That he was not that, he was not the guy that was on the Super Friends. I started reading. Was it? Yeah, I started reading DC stuff in the 80s. Ooh, so it was about the time, they were killing off Jason Todd and Dark Knight Returns, and but Frank for Miller. Me, Batman Year One was just a masterpiece for me. And I already knew that creative team from Daredevil.
Oh, yes.
Because they had done Born Again on Daredevil. And so that was like, ooh, this is what I think of as Batman, is this Year One version. And so that was a great comic. I loved Batman the Animated Series. I think is probably my favorite Batman TV show.
Kevin Conroy can never
absolutely
go wrong.
Kevin Conroy is Batman in my head. I can't read a comic without hearing him.
I'm the exact same way. Every time, no matter who wrote it, who did the coloring, who did the artistry of it, I'm always thinking this is a Conroy episode because we grew up on it.
Yep. Yeah. And the comics, they did a series of comics based on that TV version.
Oh, yes, they did.
And some of the art, like Mike Parabeck drew a lot of them, and he was fantastic. Rick Burchett drew a lot of them. Ty Templeton worked on a lot of them. Just beautiful, fun, and very much in the tone of the show. Favorite Batman movie? That one gets a little tougher because I do love the Keaton one. I do
89's Batman from Tim Burton. Yes, sir.
And I do love Batman Begins and The Dark Knight.
Yes.
But I also, it's hard to, but still, going back to that animated thing, it's hard to top Mask of the Phantasm.
And here's the crazy thing I learned about this as we went along. With Batman Mask of the Phantasm, it got a very limited theatrical run. It did not do well. Like, it came and went very fast within theaters, but on home video, it developed the huge following that it has today, including I'm in that family myself. So because of that, it's a dark movie, but it's an animated film, and you would think, oh, this is for kids, right? No, not necessarily, because Mark Hamill is the devil as the Joker in that film, especially when he grabs Arthur Reeves and plants him on the desk and he says, makes you want to laugh, doesn't it, Arthur? I'm like, whoa, this is like
that could have been that the script for that could have been filmed live action.
It's dark.
It's dark,
dark, but it's a great film, and the voice cast is it's incredible. From Kevin Conroy, who'd have thunk that Luke Skywalker could play the devil himself as the Joker?
Yeah,
if that's
and
not
we love
range
him
as an
for
actor, I don't know what is.
Yeah, and we love him for it. You know,
that's the thing. Like, we love him as Luke, but then we also love him as playing the most sick, twisted villain of all, arguably of all time, as the Joker. So that film's up there. There's no. I think it's one of the best like origin type stories for a character, because we've never seen something like that with Batman up to that point. We've never seen something like this. So I'm thinking to myself, if I'm going to put this in the comic book Hall of Fame, this would be like in the top 15, if not the top 10.
And I think too, you know, with Mask of the Phantasm, you also have the great bookend of Batman Beyond Return of the Joker, which really, if you play those two back to back,
it's it's amazing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so for me, I think one of my favorite Batman films is obviously 89, because I can watch that all day, all night. Doesn't matter. Jack Nicholson, Michael Keaton. You want to get nuts? Let's get nuts.
So excited to see Keaton back. I'm really curious to see what's going to happen there.
I want to see a trailer, and I want to see if they drop some footage of him in the suit again, or him just grabbing a guy by the throat and saying, "What are you?" Like, if I hear those words just one more time,
right?
35 plus years later.
Yeah, because Keaton looks now. At the age he is and how he looks, it's very reminiscent of the Bruce that's in Batman Beyond. So even if he wasn't in costume, I could still see him playing that version of the character. So
yeah. So for me, some of my favorite Batman moments would probably be Batman 89 is a huge one. The animated Mask of the Phantasm within the animated series, that's probably my favorite part of the series. And then favorite comic featuring Batman, I'd probably have to say. It's kind of tough because I like certain ones more than others, but I'm trying to think of what it was. I think Batman Hush was really good.
Hush was good. I liked Hush until the last issue.
Yeah. I
have the writer in me has problems when you get to the solution and they have information that you didn't give the reader. And a lot of the clues that Batman uses to solve Hush, the Hush problem.
The Hush problem, yeah.
Were things that we as the reader did not see. Where he's going, oh yeah, I found this. And I'm like, well, wait, I didn't know that.
That's true.
And as a crime writer, I like to play fair with my audience. If there's a clue, I make sure to plant it in there, because I don't want my readers to get to the end and go, wait, you didn't show me that.
Where did this come from?
Yeah. It's like, he's pulling this out of thin air.
Thin air.
Yeah. He's, and that was I loved Hush up until that last issue, and it just kind of went, Urgh.
Yeah. I was going to say Batman Hush is one of my I think Batman The Long Halloween was pretty good.
That one's excellent.
I think The Long Halloween had that ending was, oh my God. I'm like, really? Is this really what's going on? That's cray cray, but I like it a lot. So good stuff. Long Halloween. If no one's checked out any of these titles and you are watching this and you're interested in learning more about the character, I'm Batman. Check out the titles that Bobby Nash and myself just dropped in your lap. So feel free. And by the way, support your local comic shops on Batman Day this weekend. So there you go. There's another plug there for you, Batman fans.
And speaking of Batman, just from the personal note,
yes,
Crazy 8 Books just released these essay books about the first 2 seasons of the 60s TV show, and I wrote an essay for Volume 2.
You did?
Yes, based on the episodes. It's a Joker episode, where Joker has invented time travel. So it's it was quite fun. Yeah,
he invented time travel in the 60s before Dr. Emmett Brown invented it in 1955. Okay.
Yes, he is able to control time with a box and a key. if he turns the key this way, he can speed time up. Turns the key. It's as silly as it sounds.
I was going to say, what was Cesar Romero thinking on set that day? I can control time travel. Yes, Cesar, please take a breath. Take a break.
But it was a lot of fun, and we got to do that. And so Jim Beard and Rich Hanley were the guys putting that book together, and they just they were up previously and came down, and they were re-released this week. So if you're fans of the '60s show and want to hear people like me and other writers and creators pontificate about the episodes and give commentary and things, you might enjoy those.
There you go. That's plug number 1 of 150 for Bobby Nash this week. That's okay. It's no problem. Brian, thanks for the shout out for Happy Batman Day. That's actually when I became a comic book fan 4 years ago on Batman Day, Bobby. So there you go.
Nice.
That's when I became a fan. Now, Brian Wensloff is really going to test you here. He has a question. Brian Wensloff asks, who's on your author Mount Rushmore? So you can pick 4 names for Mount Rushmore.
Four names. Michael Connelly would definitely be up there.
Lawyer. There you go.
Yep. That would be one.
Good movie too with McConaughey.
Yeah. So he would definitely be up there. This is gonna be tougher than I thought. It's amazing. You have you like you're already trying to work these out in your head, and then you ask the question, and my mind goes blank. Elmore Leonard would certainly make the cut.
Speaking of Raylan Givens, as we were talking about backstage.
Elmore Leonard. If there's a style that my writing tries to emulate, there's a bit of him in there.
There you go.
That cut right to the chase, and so definitely Elmore Leonard. This one would probably be an odd choice because I know he gets a lot of hate, but I learned a lot from reading James Patterson.
Oh, okay.
Reading James Patterson, I was a big fan of the Alex Cross books, especially the early Alex Cross books. What I learned, the big thing I learned when I started writing was I felt I had it in my head, chapters have to be this long. And so my writing suffered because I was padding things to make chapters be this long. And the first time I read an Alex Cross novel, I was like, wait, chapters can be 2 pages? And it was a big revelation for me on the writing side of things, and made me start adjusting how I wrote things, which I think made my writing better. So he gets up there for that.
Who's going to be door number 4?
Door number 4. Wow, that's tough.
We got the Mount Rushmore. So you got 4 faces, the 4 horsemen.
That's tough. I would probably go with Edgar Rice Burroughs because I grew up reading a lot of his stuff, and the adventure stuff. I'm a big fan of that. Going on adventures, discovering lost lands, or Indiana Jones type stuff. And Burroughs' work really embodies that. And I learned a lot. And I could probably, if you ask me again tomorrow, I could probably give you 4 completely different. But off the top of my head, those would be the first 4 that come to mind.
Great names. And by the way, we'll throw this out to you. If you had a Mount Rushmore of authors, who would you put on your version of Mount Rushmore? Let us know in the comments. We would like to hear about it. We really would. Brian Wensloff, I don't know what you've been drinking today, but apparently it's the question juice, because he's got another one for you here, Bobby. He asks, what are your favorite crime/thriller films?
Ooh, films. Well, we mentioned Bosch. Well, Bosch was a TV show, though.
That's a TV series, though.
There is an excellent movie that's it never became a big hit film, to my knowledge, but there's a movie called Switchback, which is an excellent crime thriller that stars Dennis Quaid, Jared Leto, and Danny Glover. Ooh. An excellent crime whoudonit mystery, who's the villain. They're setting it up to it's one of these people, but you kind of have to figure it out as you go. Arlie Ermy is also in that movie. It's an excellent thriller that I try to watch at least once a year. Let's see. Other thrillers. Damn, I wish I had my DVDs are in the other room where I'd be like scanning the DVD.
Oh, I
wall.
was gonna say, I thought you would have everything in that studio of yours.
No, different stuff in different rooms. But God, I'm totally blanking.
I mean, we mentioned Michael Connelly, so I think The Lincoln Lawyer is a good.
The Lincoln
it's more of a
Lawyer
legal drama than a crime thriller, but it's still.
But there's still that thriller element to it.
Yeah.
There's
what is it? Crime thriller. I'm trying to think. There's a Lincoln Lawyer. There's A Time to Kill. I think.
A Time to Kill is a good one. I also enjoy. I do enjoy some of the good murder. Like trying to figure out who the murderer is.
Knives Out.
Knives Out's a good one.
Even though this is more of a comedy, maybe Clue.
And then there was a
crime thriller.
Blanket on the title of the things like Jackie Brown.
Jackie
Brown was good, based on an Elmore Leonard novel.
Wow.
That's a good one. So Tarantino does a lot of good, like
cult fiction,
crime, pulpy. Certain Reservoir Dogs is probably my favorite of the bunch.
Yeah. I just did a rewatch of that.
Yeah, good stuff. And I also kind of like my thrillers with a little action. I did enjoy, Clint Eastwood's done some stuff like with Gran Torino, which is very thrillery.
Get Off My Lawn.
Yeah, stuff like that, or I
think this could be. Is this considered a crime thriller in The Line of Fire? I think that's a pretty good one.
I think so. I mean, because they are law enforcement trying to
Secret Service agents
stop a crime,
trying to take down John Malkovich, who, by the way, plays a creepy criminal like very well.
Does it very well. That is
in The Line of Fire.
Yeah, in The Line of Fire is a favorite. I absolutely love that one. Yeah, and Eastwood. One of the things about Clint Eastwood, as he's gotten older, some of his thrillers, the tone of them changed because he's not. It's not like he's not Dirty Harry anymore, running down the street shooting. So how his character deals with the thriller changes, and it's something that I've really think about as I'm getting older. I don't run like I used to. If I get thrown over a table, I don't pop back up like I used. I'm going to lay there and go, oh, and then the killer's going to
Eastwood could probably do it, but
yeah. Well, I worked on I do some acting and mostly extra work, but I do some acting on the side. Mm-hmm. And I worked on a Clint Eastwood film.
No way.
You don't see me on it. My car made the movie. But I was in the Mule.
Oh my gosh, you were in that?
Well, I was there.
Well, you were there, but
they ended up not using us. We spent 2 days sitting in a hotel room while they were filming right outside. But I did get to meet Mr. Eastwood. It was a very brief meeting. We passed each other in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And I just kind of said, Mr. Eastwood, and he went, and kept.
He just gave you the. He didn't give you keep up the good work, son.
Yeah.
And he just walked off. No, he didn't. He just gave you a thumbs up, like, thanks for being here. We need extras.
Yeah. But watching the man work, was, because sometimes we had to be in the room because, we can't be on, in the way. But there were times when we could go out and just be there and watch. And so watching him work as a director. I mean, obviously I'd seen him act before. I've seen movies where I know how he acts, but watching him direct was a joy. And, and I learned so much from doing that, of seeing how different directors handle projects. And he's built a team that's, follows him from movie to movie. So he doesn't really have to go around setting up shots and put the camera here. He's got people that does that. And he spends all of his time with the actor going, here's what we need to do. And they work that out. And then it's like, just go when you're ready. And very fun, very relaxed set, but he keeps it moving. So I was very impressed, but yeah, so, sorry, I got off on that tangent
okay.
Yeah. So
thanks for bringing that up. It's a good film. I just saw The Mule not too long ago. So that was a good film. I liked it, man. My goodness. That was a tense film.
Yeah. Yeah.
Very
it was fun. We were there for the stuff we were there for. Like I said, I was there for 2 nights. We were there for the stuff where Bradley Cooper finds the guy he thinks is the drug mule, and the big guy.
Yeah, the big guy.
And
Yeah.
he was hilarious, by the way. At one point, he comes out of the room holding up. He's like, they just did set dressing, and he holds up this shirt, and he goes, "I can't put an arm in this shirt, and they want me to think it's mine." So it was hilarious. So we had a ball with him, but we got to watch the fight scene where they crashed through the door and out over the side. So we got to watch them do that. And yeah, so it was fun. It was a fun time.
Goodness gracious, man, that is amazing.
So stuff like that's fun. I've done,
cool.
I've done a few things where I have lines and really acting. Most of the stuff I've done has been background stuff. Just walk over here, you're playing this or whatever, and you kind of sometimes interact and sometimes you don't. You just depends on the project. So
right. Well, going back to who would you put on your Mount Rushmore? Charles F. Millhouse is here with us. He chimes in with his Mount Rushmore. He says, for me, it would be Frank Herbert, William F. Nolan, I believe it is, Isaac Asimov, and Jim Butcher.
Nice.
That's what Charles F. Millhouse has to say about that one, about who would be on your author Mount Rushmore. Thank you for chiming in, by the way, Charles F. Millhouse. Really, really do appreciate it.
I would pick Charles on my second Mount Rushmore.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. See.
Trying to score some brownie points there, Bob?
That's right.
It's okay. It's okay. It's all good. So on the flip side of things, what would you say have been some of the challenges of being a writer, Bobby?
Ooh, well, as an indie writer, especially, I'm not working I've done very few things that have been for large publishers, one or two, but most of my stuff has been smaller press, or I have my own press. So there's a lot of do it yourself. And one of the big challenges is as an indie, you don't have the distribution in place like a big publisher does. You're not going to walk into Target or Walmart or one of the bookstores in the airport and find my books there. You're just not. It's not going to happen. You're not going to walk into Barnes and Noble and see most of my books there. They'll order it for you, but they're not going to stock it. It's not going to be shelved. So a big part of the challenges that I face on a daily basis is marketing, is getting my work in front of readers and trying to find ways to do that are not annoying, because if all you're doing is slamming people with, hey, buy this, you can turn people off. So having to find interesting ways to get your work in front of people is a challenge, but it's a fun challenge. I do enjoy the marketing side of things. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. Things like talking about the books while you're working on them, or, I'm not selling anything, but I'm just talking about, I had to research this today, or, I'm working on this book. And, so you're putting it out there without, heavy handed trying to like beg for money or, buy my stuff, So different things like that. I love doing stuff like this, interviews and podcasts, and getting out there and just talking about writing and doing stuff, doing panels at conventions. All that kind of stuff is fun. But it's just different ways of getting the work in front of people. And that's a challenge. It's a challenge. I think most of us, regardless of what size publisher you're working for, we face, because even the big publishers are, they don't market like they used to. They don't send you on this big 3-month book tour, and the publishing model has very much changed. So that's a big one, so that's probably the biggest challenge I face. It's actually easier to write the books than it is to sell them. It's, and I think anybody else that's a writer will understand. I mean, Charles is probably right now nodding his head going, yep. So it's, so that's a big challenge. The rest of it's pretty easy. I mean, I have a great commute. I get up in my bedroom. I walk across the hall to the office. I'm dressed comfortably. I mean, I wore a clean shirt, but I'm wearing my pajama pants as we talk.
Oh my
it's
Lord.
It's so those are some of the easy things. But the challenges basically are just finding ways to get the work out there. And if you're working for publishers, you have to get them to hire you. So that is not always an easy process. Trying to find an agent is I've had less trouble finding publishers willing to publish my work than I've had success with agents going, yeah, I think this is interesting. to the point I've actually given up on trying to find an agent. So I will probably never work for any of these big publishers. But it's just, because I've carved out a little niche for myself. It's not huge, but it works.
Yeah, I was going to say, in the words of, I'm not sure who said these words first, and I apologize if I don't know the source of it off the top of my head, but hey, Bobby, you all right. So here's a question from Brian Wensloff. He's got another one here for you. Brian, once again, you're drinking the question formula. I don't know what's up with you. He says, out of the books you've written, which one would you like to see as a series or a film?
I'll give you two. I think these two right here would be excellent TV series.
Plug.
Yes. Snow, because I kind of write them that way. Snow, the individual novellas are basically episodes, and
one after the other.
Yeah. And In the Wind is kind of the same way. Each one, because you get a full story in each book, but there are threads that kind of go along. Whereas my earlier novels, things like Evil Ways, which were written to be, full length, 100,000 plus word novels, I think feel more like movies because of the scope of them. Whereas these guys are kind of more, written with that series feel in mind. I also think Lance Starr would make a great series. Actually, I think Domino Lady would, I don't own her, but I think Domino Lady would make an excellent, TV series. Just by the way the stories run. And I mean, I even think she could work in modern day. She doesn't have to be in the 30s. I think you can still tell the same kind of stories and it works. So.
That's fair.
And to me, I never, even when you're writing something, you're only going to do once, the characters don't leave you, they stay, they hang around. And so like characters I worked on years ago that I don't own, I'll never work on again, or some cases they're not even used anymore. I still get ideas for those characters. It's like, once they're in there. And so, but in some cases that works out. When I wrote Evil Ways, I never intended to write Sheriff Tom Myers again. He was a secondary character in that book. But something about the character stuck with me, and ever so often in the back of my mind, he would remind me that he was there. And so that led to his inclusion in Deadly Games. And then he would still, ever so often, and then it finally clicked one day, the story that became In the Wind, which is because the original idea was not a Sheriff Myers story. I had the idea of the plot, but when the two came together, that's when it finally was like, oh, I know what this is now. Because a lot of times I get ideas and I have a folder and I'm like, I don't know where that goes yet. Or I don't know what, it's just the germ of the idea. And so you put it in there. And sometimes it's characters. I have characters that I don't know what story they're there for. But I have characters. And so I'll do all the character write-up and I put them in a folder. And it's like, one day we'll find the story for you. And so that's what happened with In the Wind, this idea I've had about a missing witness and trying to find a missing witness. Whatever magical thing happens inside my brain that one day took those two very different things and went, oh yeah, these two work together. And suddenly you have an idea,
Well, that works.
It's weird.
Out.
Yeah.
No. It's fine. Every writer has their own process. It's okay. Yeah. There's nothing to be ashamed of here. Now, I want to take a step back in time for a bit. I'm just curious. They say that a picture is worth 1,000 words. So I just want to know, how did this happen? Domino Lady Money Shot. Tell us how did you come up with the idea for the story? And in a way, if you have an executive standing inside the elevator with you and you have to give something known as an elevator pitch, tell us about it.
Okay. Well, I had written Domino Lady in the anthology, and I'd done a couple of comic things with her for Moonstone. One day I get an email from Joe at Moonstone, who knows I'm writing, I write novels, and he knows that I write thrillers and crime fiction. And Domino Lady, for all her pulpy roots, is a crime mystery, thriller character. The Mask is the only kind of superhero-y trait to her. She's a regular. She's Batman, basically, and without all the gadgets. She doesn't have quite the gadgets. So I get this email from Joe that goes, So I know you like writing like crime thrillers. Would you like to write a Domino Lady political thriller? And I was like, yes. And that was it. That was really, that was the start of it. And he, I said yes on the spot, and he's like, great, I need it by, and gave me a deadline, and I went to work. Now I when I started coming up with the story, I had already set some stuff up in the stuff I had done previously with her, because Domino Lady appeared in 6 stories in the 1930s, and she had one recurring villain, and I used him in the story I did for the anthology.
Mm-hmm.
And so now he dies in her last story. So I set my story between these two. And the character, one of his goals, as was written in the original stories, was he was a big game hunter turned actor who wanted to one day be the governor of California.
Mm-hmm.
This was his goal.
Yeah.
And he was not a good guy.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had made mention, like, he has a small scene in the anthology. I mentioned him just a briefing that he's on the campaign trail, not thinking I'd ever do anything with it. It was just to keep that consistency of, things going from the people that knew the story. And so when Joe asked about the political thriller aspect, I was like, wait, we've got this guy running for governor. She doesn't want him to be governor because she knows he's a scumbag. So she's trying to stop it. What does that cause? And so she throws her lot in with the guy running opposite him, his opposition. And then, when that guy gets assassinated, she knows who's behind it, and she's like, I'm going to have to stop him. And that's really where it started. It's like, and then the titles, Domino Lady was considered part of the spicy pulps in the 30s. She was the adult, if you read them now, they're not that bad. They're kind of tame, but she was a character that used sex. She had sex, they didn't write the scenes, it's kind of like the old movies where they go in for the clutch and the camera pans off. The books did something similar,
right?
They go in, there's a lot of innuendo in those old stories. And so Moonstone does a lot of innuendo in the titles. So there's a lot of stuff like the anthology was Sex as a Weapon. So I had originally titled the book Strange Bedfellows because it was a political thriller. And so that was one thing. I did not come up with Money Shot. Money Shot was kind of told, no, that's the title. I think it works, but it was, but yeah, it was fun. And then Douglas Clawba did the cover, which is absolutely beautiful shot of her. And it was a thrill. It was I'm the first person to ever write a Domino Lady novel ever. So that was a nice bit of bonus. And I
was going to say that's a nice feather in one's cap, if I do say so myself. Thanks for sharing that with us. Really appreciate it. Once again, we're talking with crime fiction writer Bobby Nash. You got any questions for him? Leave them in the comment section. We're going to get to them as they come in. And also, make sure you're sharing this video with 400 of your closest friends. They're going to like the way they look after watching videos from Nerd Culture. I guarantee it. So, yeah, Bobby, your next question comes from a young man by the name of Charles F. Millhouse. He chimes in. He wants to know, Bobby, do you have an end game for someone named Snow, or are you just going to keep writing it until the day you die?
Yes, I don't have a scene in my head that I know is the final scene. Sometimes with characters you do, you may never get there, but you'll have an end scene in your head. I don't really have one with Snow. I suspect Snow will not, come to a happy end. I mean, there's a lot going against him. He is in constant peril from the beginning of book 1. This is on the back cover, so it's not really a big spoiler. He gets shot and left for dead, and so he's got shrapnel like half an inch from his heart, and so he now has heart problems for the rest of his life. And even though his doctors and everyone has said you need to you can't go leaping headfirst into these problems and these things that you do anymore. You've got to take it easy. He still leaps headfirst into these problems, and eventually one of them's probably going to cause a heart attack. I don't know. That's just off the top of my head, but hopefully it'll be, though, a good long ways away, you know.
No, that's fair enough. Fair enough. Once again, thank you for the questions, everyone who is chiming in here. Charles, thank you for that. Brian Wenzoff asks, Stephen King or Clive Barker? Which one is it going to be?
Wow, that's tough. I've only read a little of each. That's tough. I'd probably give the nod to King a little more. I think I like the movies based on King stuff. I think sometimes a little more than I like the novels. But so there's been more of his properties that I've been a big fan of. But yeah, so probably King. Of course, one of my least favorite novels of all time, King wrote too. So that could be I was not a fan of The Colorado Kid. I wanted to throw that book across the room when I was done.
Oh, like Bradley Cooper's character throws the book out the window in that movie Silver Linings Playbook. What the blank?
Well, it was. It's not that it wasn't because it was written poorly or anything.
No,
it's just that the entire book is two guys telling a story to someone. That's it. It's two guys telling a story. They're not even like. It's not like you even go into the story. It's just. It's That's not the framing sequence. That's the whole thing. It's just, well, let me tell you what happened, and which is one of the things you're told. The first rule of writing: don't do that. And it just, so it bugged me. It was a, personal taste thing. I did, however, love the TV show that was based off of the book. So.
That's fair. That's fair for sure. Now I want to take a step forward a little bit and get a little bit more towards the present. And I'm curious, this one right here, it's called In the Wind, with an incredible looking cover, if I do say so myself, with a badge and a couple of shots being put through. I believe it's a set of glass. So I'm curious, Bobby, how did In the Wind come about? And once again, an executive is standing right next to you in that elevator. You got to give the best elevator pitch in the world to that executive. What's it going to be? Go ahead.
Oh yeah, and I guess I didn't really do that with the Domino Lady one. Sorry, the Domino Lady, the pulpy political thriller would be the elevator pitch for that one. That cover, by the way, is by Jeffrey Hayes, Plasma Fire Graphics, who does an excellent job. Actually, I just saw the cover for book 2 yesterday, so we haven't unveiled that yet, but that's coming soon. In the Wind is the first in a series of mystery thrillers starring Sheriff Tom Myers, who is the sheriff of Summersville, Georgia, which is a fictional county that I created in Evil Ways. In Evil Ways, Tom is the sheriff, and he is not the main character. And so after Evil Ways, the character just kind of, like I said earlier, the characters kind of remind you they're there. And so a few years later, I did a novel called Deadly Games, and which was not even a sequel to Evil Ways. It featured different characters. But at one point, I needed them to get out of the city and go to a smaller community. And I was like, well, wait, I've already created this town. I'll just use that town. And so I figured, I'll have them in the town, but that's all I'll use. But as the story progressed, this little voice in the back of my head goes, look, this is the point where you'd call the cops. And that just kept hammering over and over. It's like, people are going to go, why didn't you call the cops? So the sheriff and his deputies make a return appearance in that book. And so at that point, when I finished that one, just like with Evil Ways, it's like, I'm never going to write these guys again. So, like I said earlier, I had this scene in my head for a long time which is the beginning of this book, a safe house where FBI and federal marshals, U.S. Marshals, have sequestered a material witness who is going to turn state's evidence on someone. And the safe house is attacked. A lot of the agents are either wounded or killed. The witness manages to escape out the window before the house explodes. And so I had that scene in my head, and I knew that was the start of a story, but I didn't know what story. It just kind of sat there for a while. And then In the Wind was kind of attached to that idea. Sorry, I talk with my hands. You'll see that a lot.
No, it's okay.
And so the name, it was attached to it, but I didn't know what to do with it. I didn't have a character in mind. And so it just kind of sat on the background. And meanwhile, the Sheriff Myers character is in my head going, do you not have anything for me to do? And so eventually the idea of marrying those two, the character to the plot, solidified some way. I don't even remember what happened when it came together. But once I realized that plot was the opening to a Sheriff Myers story, the pieces all just started falling into place of where the safe house was, why Summersville is a great place for that to happen because of the way I had set up Summersville, and it's a lot of open, rural, almost Wild West parts of of the county where so where it's easy to get lost in, and so the story started coming together that way. Now, but at this point, also, I had become a big fan of things like Longmire and Justified, which we talked about earlier, and those inspired some of my choices as well because I love the look and feel of Longmire and how the characters interact with that town and the culture. I love the Justified does that as well with in both the books and in both cases in books and in the shows.
Mm-hmm.
Playing with that with Justified, it's that Kentucky is very much a part of that story. If it was set somewhere else, the story might be a little different. And also with Justified too, it's like, man, we're spending just as much time with the bad guys as we are the good guys. And I kind of like that, So there is some inspiration from those two things that also kind of piled onto Sheriff Myers. And so I went back, took a look at Summersville. We've jumped ahead quite a bit from Evil Ways. We've jumped ahead like 5 or 6 years, I think.
Okay.
And so where it's been fairly quiet, but now this happens. And so it kind of gets us on. And that plus it allowed me to make some changes. Like I said, when I wrote the original, it was one of those things. It's like I need a location, and I just kind of created it, but I didn't put a lot of thought into it as much as I should have, because I really didn't know what I was doing when I wrote Evil Ways. And some may say I still don't know what I'm doing, but so it allowed me to make some cosmetic changes to Summersville, the setting, and the police department and things like that, and blah blah blah, and. So once all that kind of come together, the story started to take shape. The idea of then doing it as a series, because when I started writing this, it was like, oh, I'll give him this one story, he'll shut up, and then that didn't work. So because as I'm writing characters and getting into the worlds and plotting things, ideas will kick off and go. I'll write. I do a lot of free writing with these things in the early bits of it, and I'm just writing bits about the characters, the settings and whatnot. And sometimes ideas will pop into me at that stage. It's like, ooh, we should set up this because in book 3 we can do this, that kind of thing. So my brain is always thinking unconsciously that these characters will be seen again, and so that worked that way. But yeah, as for the executive pitch, it's like it's definitely if I had to do the elevator pitch, it's Justified and Longmire with a little U.S. Marshals thrown in, the fugitive thrown in, and so because we do a lot of chasing, we do, there is action. I'm an action guy. It's very rare for me not to write anything with no action in it, and it's very action heavy. So.
I was going to say, not that there's anything wrong with that.
No, I'm a huge fan of action.
Who isn't? When you put Justified, Longmire, and U.S. Marshals in the same sentence, that is a recipe for awesome sauce. So, Bobby, thanks for pointing that out. But yeah, In the Wind, I actually just finished reading it a few weeks ago. Fantastic. And thank
you for the review.
Yes, yeah, no problem. And it's a great novel. If you haven't checked it out yet, definitely check it out. It's a really, really well put together story with a great number of characters, and the cover itself. I mean, now, granted, you and as well as you watch this, may have heard this in the past, never judge a book by its cover. We shouldn't do that, even though sometimes in the back of our minds we, subconsciously or whatever, we do it, even though we tell ourselves not to do it. But I'm telling you, you look at In the Wind and you see this cover. It's pretty good. I'm just going to point that out. Now, Bobby, you've heard some of these names have come across your desk, maybe in the past, maybe at some point on the television set, whether it's, who is it? You got Ethan Hunt, Jason Bourne, maybe someone named James Bond. I'm not sure. Maybe you've heard that name come across your desk. But you hear all these names. Someone says, you want a drink? Yeah, sure. Which one you want? Vodka martini. Shaken, not stirred. And for you. And then the supporting character says the same. How do you take it? Straight up with a twist. Thank you, Mr. The name's Snow. Abraham Snow. So I'm curious. Here's another one. Snow by Bobby Nash. Now, granted, I don't like winter. Winter is my least favorite season of the entire year. You want to know why? Because I don't like the fact that sometimes I have to go outside of my home and shovel 5 feet of snow wherever you may live. You may get a lot of snow. You may get a little bit of snow, maybe not. I'm just saying. But this person known as Abraham Snow, I hope I'm saying that right. Yep. Bobby, who is Snow? What is this story about? Is it a series? Is it going to move forward? And if it is, what's the greatest elevator pitch you are about to give us for Snow? Tell us about the season of Snow, or rather yet, tell us about Snow, Abraham.
Yeah, Snow is, again, another beautiful cover by Jeffrey Hayes here on the screen. Snow is this idea that I had I'm a huge fan of 70s and 80s comp and PI shows and books. I loved they were all action heavy. They were all very character driven, things like the Rockford Files or Magnum PI. Most of the time, it wasn't the case they were working that kept you glued to those shows. It was the characters. And so I wanted to do a series that introduced those type of things. And this one came about in a weird way. It's not like I sat down and planned in advance. This is what I want to do. I got a call from a friend of mine who was like, hey, there's this publisher that's going to be doing straight to ebook novellas, and they're looking for some people. I want to give them your name if you are interested in talking to them. And so I was like, sure. And so we're on this conference call, and they're telling me their plans of what they want to do, and the kind of book, put out straight to ebooks, and they're looking for stuff that could be read fairly quickly, and blah blah blah. Anyway, so he's like, you got anything you can pitch? And I didn't, but I had this idea, just like with the beginning of In the Wind. I had this scene that had been in my head for a while of a undercover agent having his cover blown and being shot and left for dead. And in my head, I see it like a movie. And as he's laying there, and this would be like the opening teaser of the movie or the opening scene of the show. And he's left for dead. And then the camera kind of pans up off of him as he's laying there with a pool of blood, and then I had this thing, it moves across the trees, and it's him in a car now driving. He obviously survived. And so that scene had been in my head. So I was like, when someone says you got a pitch off the top of their, and you haven't planned, you pull some of those ideas. And so I here's my idea for this. And he lives, and he's like, well, what's his name? And I had no name for him. Actually, originally I was going to call him something. I think Hunt was going to be his last name originally. And I don't remember why I changed it, but it was one of those spur of the moment things where the publisher's going, so what's this thing called? And I was like, oh, it's called Snow. And it just kind of, that's where the name, it popped into my head. And he's like, oh, great, write it up and send it to us. And so at that point, he had no first name. I went through like 6 first names before I settled on Abraham. Because again, like you said, names from movies and stuff, and you want it to be a name that fits, but you also want it to kind of be a name that's could be real. And so my pitch is, I always pitch Snow as my love letter to the cop and PI shows of the 70s and 80s. And, Magnum, Rockford, things like that. It's usually once I say that, people go, oh, I get it, but it's a modern day setting. It's very action heavy. It's thriller, but it's a series of ongoing books. I set it up so books 1 through 6 are series 1. And each of those 6 books, you get a full story in the book. But if you read all 6, it's one big story. Like stuff that happens in book 1 gets worked on again in book 4 and in book 6, but there's threads that go through all 6, so it's one big story. And so the particular cover you have up there now is actually the cover that's going to be used on the omnibus when we finally put them all together in all 6 in one volume. And so there's a scene there from each of the stories.
Ooh.
So like book 1, the one with the helicopter at the top, and the guy with the sights on him, that's from book 1. There's different scenes there from different books in series 1. And I just finished series 1, so book 6 should be out this month, maybe next month. But they'll continue on past that. But series 2 will start off with more standalone stuff, or it won't be. You need to read 6 of them. I learned that that's probably too much. It took me longer to get 6 of them out than I thought I would. So I don't want to do that to the readers again, going, why is it taking so long to get to the end? So, but Snow will continue. There will be more novellas by me. And then every 3, we collect them into a bigger volume. So you get 3 in a like a big volume.
Yep. There it is.
So, and I'm also I started this year inviting some writer friends of mine to be part of the Snow series. We're doing a thing called Snow Shorts, where it's short stories that we release as like 99-cent ebooks, and then we collect those as well in a paperback. Every 3 of those gets collected in a novella size, so it's very similar to what the Snow novellas look like in terms of size and format. And so I've invited other writers, and I'm doing some as well. So. But we're doing these Snow Shorts that we'll pepper out throughout the year as well. And those have been fun. I've had a great deal of fun with those. It was terrifying though. It's very terrifying to let someone else play with your toys. I'm very fortunate. I mean, I went to people I knew. I went to people I knew their talent. I knew I knew kind of what I was going to people I knew. But I've gotten some very, very wonderful things. Gary Phillips did our first one. He wrote a one with the character of Big John, who is Snow's friend. Nicole Givens-Kurtz wrote one that introduced Snow's mom, which was really cool. Brian K. Morris, take a drink. Brian K. Morris did one of them that featured Snow just running across an old acquaintance and getting into some trouble. Mark Bosquet wrote one that focuses on Mac, Snow's friend, who is an FBI agent. I wrote one called Snow Flies, where Snow is undercover trying to stop some smugglers. I'm working on an Archer one now, which is Snow's grandfather, and then and Charles F. Milhouse, who is here, has written one called Snow Heart, which will probably be out in October. So and there's more to come. There's more in the pipeline after that. So it's exciting. It's exciting to see how other people have adapted or have interpreted the characters, and that's really cool to see what they're getting out of the characters and how they're portraying them, and what they see is their strengths and weaknesses and things like that. And in some cases they're adding things to the mythos that kind of I can use later. Like Gary had a very simple one where just the way that Big John and Archer talk to each other, he did something in their dialogue that I really liked, and I said I'm using that going forward. So some things like that. It's been really fun. I'm having a great time doing that, and yeah, I'm very impressed with the response to Snow. And that publisher, unfortunately, the ebook thing didn't last very long, and so I'm doing them myself now. But I loved the ebook or the novella format. So these are nice 30,000 word, fairly easy to read novellas. I think I got one here.
I was gonna say, I'm sure you have more than one visual prop in that studio.
Yeah, so like
there it is.
Yeah, well, this is the Snow Shorts one, so you can see the size.
Yeah, volume
Yes,
one.
it's a nice, easy read novellas.
It's almost a small, you can fit it in your pocket, read it on the beach, maybe read it when you're just chilling on a park bench somewhere on a nice, beautiful day in the neighborhood, a beautiful day for a neighbor.
Yes. Well, see, that was kind of my thinking too, because it is very much that love letter to the 70s and 80s. Yeah. I was thinking, man, that size, I used to grow up reading, those paperbacks. I think mine are an inch or two bigger, but but still, I love that size and format. And so we're doing them. We release them as ebooks. We release them as paperbacks. Then we collect them for people that want the standard size instead of the small size. We do audio books, which are so we're trying to get it out in as many formats. I signed a deal this week to do for next year. We're going to do a short full cast snow piece. It's like an audio drama. It's going to be like a prequel to the first book. It'll be a short thing, so we're doing that. So different things like that. So it's a lot of fun. I've been very impressed with the number of people that have mentioned that they enjoyed the book and enjoy the series, and there's people wearing T-shirts and there's
that looks a bit similar to the image we have on your screen.
Yeah.
But,
so I had a really quick snow funny story. There was a convention, Heroes Convention in Charlotte, North Carolina. Happens. It hadn't happened in the last couple of years because of recent events, but a couple of years ago, I'm sitting home. I was not at the convention. I was at home that weekend. And all of a sudden, like all of my social media, my emails are like blowing up going, oh my God, there's someone here wearing a snow shirt. And so I'm getting like all kind of photos and people just telling me there's someone here wearing a shirt with your character on it. And I knew who it was because it is a friend of mine, and he had bought a shirt and told me he had it. And so I'm like telling people, great, go up and buy him a drink. But so that was cool. It's really cool that people have recognized the character. People like the character. After Game of Thrones, though, there's a lot of people that keep referring to him as Jon Snow, and that's not right. But
no, two different characters, two different genres, two different time periods too. Because Game of Thrones is like way back, fantasy Middle Earth type stuff. So it's not here that Bobby, if I didn't know any better, looking at this image here that we have on your screen, I would have guessed this was a movie poster, much rather than a poster for a book series. Yeah,
kind of. Yeah. Well, like I said, Jeffrey is fantastic. He did. I don't know if you can see it here. I'll show you I've got this one here in the floor here.
Oh, there it is.
This was the first one that Jeffrey did, and this is Jeffrey's idea of a generic snow poster. So as you can see, there's an explosion, a helicopter, a car, gunmen, after Elizabeth, missiles firing on a plane, an exploding building. This is Jeffrey's idea of generic. So so he does this type of thing very well, and he has a great an eye for design. And so what we're going to do is we're going to use that particular image up there. That will be we're planning an omnibus for the first 6 books, and that will be the cover for the omnibus. And
man, you may have my curiosity, but now you have my attention. And I must say, Bobby, if that's going to be the cover of the omnibus coming soon to a bookshelf near you, in the words of Futurama, just shut up and take my money.
Yep. Well, we're also doing like I said, we do the collections, in this big size, and this is volume 1. Volume 2 will have the same cover but flipped, so they kind of bookend each other. We're also doing, once that happens, Jeffrey has done covers for volumes 1 and 2, so we'll release those with the Jeffrey Hayes variant cover. So, and then he will be doing covers with book 7 going on. So as long as he wants to do them, I am happy to have Jeffrey Hayes covers on them.
And I'm probably going to end up being happy to open my wallet and give you all the money.
We'll take it.
They say don't judge the book or books by their covers, but at the same time, when you have a cover being done by Jeffrey Hayes of Plasma Fire Graphics, where the cover of your book matters to you, # always promote your friends or your acquaintances, I must say. you can't go wrong. I mean, it literally looks like movie posters every time I see something from Jeffrey Hayes, respectively. And by the way, just to give everyone just a little bit of a quick tease, just real quick, Jeffrey Hayes may or may not appear on this very program. So stay tuned for more details as they become available, because I don't want to give away too much in the realm of spoilers.
Yeah. But you know, people always say that too. And yeah, not judging a book by its cover is important. But also from my side of things, from the selling it kind of thing.
Yeah, of course.
That is the thing that gets you to pick the book up.
I'm not going to lie. Every time I see a cover, whether it's done by Jeffrey Hayes or someone else, and I look at the cover of the book and I think, okay, what is this story? What is this cover trying to tell me as a potential reader? What is it trying to say to me? Hey, this is a little tease of what the story is, but if you want to know more, you got to read the whole story to figure it out. So if I see a cover that looks, let's just use this word, for example, Bobby, appetizing, I will pick up that cover, look on the back, look at a quick synopsis, because I must say, I need a little bit of something. I need an appetizer before I get the whole meal. So I look at the appetizer and thinking, okay, is this going to work for me? Yeah. Okay. And then they sold me, and then I'll open up the book and I'll read it respectively. Anyway, you were about to say, Bobby?
Well, I was going to say, well, the cover, especially in modern day, the cover needs to do one of two things. If you see it in a store, it needs to make you pick it up and flip it over to look at the back cover. If you're online, it needs to make you click the link to see more.
Yeah.
Because you're looking at these things, at an inch tall. Well, almost like you're looking at them here on the wall. They're very small behind me in the video. So the cover needs to still be able to have something there that grabs you. And so, like you said, the movie poster aspect, or if you look at the Domino Lady cover, certainly, she is a standout that makes you pick that book up and go, ooh, I want to see what this is about. Because it's not only the hot girl with the gun, but then in the background, there's gangsters and a car on fire. But the cover there really grabs you. And that's what the cover does. It makes you want to pick it up, flip it over to the back cover, and then read this stuff to see if it's of interest. And I've been very lucky. I've had a lot of good covers. I've had some bad covers. The original Evil Ways cover, I sold it to a small publisher in 2004. And a lot of Evil Ways. Here's my elevator pitch for Evil Ways. I've worked on this one for years. The elevator pitch for Evil Ways is, imagine that John McClane, the character from Die Hard, found himself in a horror movie. That's the pitch, So it's a horror movie with action. But I wrote this story, and a lot of it takes place in a state park. So there's a lot of trees and forest, and it's horror based and all this. And so the cover that the original publisher put on it, I get this cover. It's brown with pink polka dots on it, and Evil Ways in pink. And it does nothing to scream action or horror. So, yeah, cover's very, very important. So that was a harder sell for me to convince people to pick this book up, because it did not look like what it is. So.
That's very true. Once again, we're talking with crime fiction writer Bobby Nash. You got any questions for him? Leave them in the comment section. Leave them in the chat. We would love to hear from you. We hope you are enjoying this episode. And make sure you're sharing this video out to all of your friends, your family, your coworkers, because they're going to like the way they look after watching this video. I guarantee it. So, Bobby, any special memories for you from being at conventions or other events, whether you're there as a vendor selling your books or whether you are there as an attendee?
I've been doing conventions a long time. So there's a lot of them. Like I said, I mentioned earlier, I've made some lifelong friends out of people I've met at conventions. I've gotten a lot of wonderful opportunities as a writer. Being on panels with much more famous people than me, is really cool. I remember the first time I was on this comic writers panel. And I'm on here, and it's like 5 guys that have been working for Marvel, DC, Dark Horse. They're working on characters like Spider-Man and Batman, and they're all introducing. And I'm at the very end of the table, and they're all introducing themselves. It gets to me, and I introduce myself, and it's like, "Hi, I'm Bobby Nash. I'm the who's he of this panel." because I had only done some like indie stuff at that time, and so moments like that stick with me. Meeting people, conversations, but a couple of the ones that really really stand out, and just where you feel like as a writer it makes you feel good, or as a creator it makes you feel good, is when people packed books of yours in their luggage, brought it to the convention, have carried it through the convention, and brought it to you to get it signed. That took planning and effort on your part to see me, which is, awesome, and because I've been doing this a long time, but even now it feels weird when I find out that I have fans of my work. It still feels weird. So anytime someone has done that, has traveled, a great distance and put books on an airplane to come get them signed, that gets me right there. And, but it's an awesome feeling, to know that if you've ever written something that's meant something to someone. I have had people, come up and say, this book meant this, or this book meant that, or, I saw a panel. I was on a writing panel at this convention several years back, and Snow had, like, the first two, I think, had come out. And again, there was like 10 of us on the panel,
Sure.
And it was talking about characters and creating characters, and so they were talking, and they were at the other end, and I admit I kind of zoned out for a minute, and as happens, and someone in the audience, it got quiet. That's what kind of snapped me back out of it, because they were talking to the audience about some of their favorite characters from fiction, and it gets very quiet, and I look up and I realize everybody's looking at me, and I don't know why. Someone in the audience had said that one of her favorite characters was Archer Snow, Snow's grandfather. And so they were all looking at me to say something, and I was like totally oblivious. And it's stuff like that, really, those are moments that kind of stick with me.
Absolutely. And thank you for sharing that with us. What advice would you have for aspiring writers?
Have fun with it. That is very important. Don't try to write what you think will be popular if you're not a fan of it. I always use this as an example. If you're not a fan of vampires, don't write a vampire novel. Yes, it may sell well, but if you get really famous for writing vampires, you're going to be stuck writing vampires the rest of your career. And if you don't like writing vampires, you're going to be miserable for the rest of your career. So, try to write things that you enjoy, and not say you can't still write vampires. But because I work for other publishers too, and so I do characters that I didn't create, but I always try to do stuff that there's something in it that I enjoy. There's something about it that makes me want to do it, because writing something you enjoy is a lot easier than writing something that's a chore. Because then you sit down and go, oh, I don't want to work on this today. You don't want to, that doesn't help you. It doesn't help the publisher. Certainly doesn't help the readers, because if you're not having fun, it does kind of come through the story, I think. So try to decide what you want to do, write what you like, write stuff that's going to make you happy, make a plan, set goals, set realistic goals. Your first goal cannot be, I'm going to be a New York Times bestselling author. That can't be goal number one. If it is, you will never make it. You will get so frustrated. There was a time in my life where goal number one was get published. It took me a while to get there. But if that Bobby, 20-somethings Bobby, looked at me and said, where I am now, I would have thought, man, oh my God, he has made it. Because where I am now, that Bobby only dreamed of. So I set goals that helped me get there. One was get published. Because when I started, you didn't do it yourself. If you did it yourself, it was very looked down on. The self-publishing was not it was not a viable option as it is today, where people don't look down on it. So getting published was a first goal. Then the second goal was get published again. Because the first time could be a fluke, can you do it twice? Then after you do that, then you start setting other attainable goals, and then celebrate those goals when you make them. This is, you have accomplished something. Finishing a novel, it sounds, oh, okay, you finished your novel. It is a big deal. For every one person, and I don't know if these are real numbers, but for every one person that finishes writing a novel, there's probably thousands who started and didn't. And so it's something to be celebrated. Celebrate those wins. That will also buoy you to keep going. What got me to write the second novel was the fact that I finished my first one. Even though the first one was awful, I finished it. And that kind of propped me up to say, I can do that again, and I can do it better, and do it again. So yeah, so set those kind of realistic goals. And the last piece of advice I give is, if you want to write as a hobby, fine. Nothing wrong with it. If you want to write as a job, if you want this to be your career, then you have to treat it like a job. That means you go to work every day. That means I don't feel like working. Tough. You sit down, you do it anyway. That means, I'm on a deadline and can't go to the movies tonight. Guys, sorry, my friends, can't go to the movies tonight. Got to finish this. You have to treat it like the job. Things like that. We all miss deadlines. That happens. I'm guilty. But, your work ethic, that getting hired the second, third, fourth time, your work ethic is just as important to that as your talent, because publishers do take things into consideration. It's okay. You're a good writer. I've got 3 good writers, and in all 3 of them would write this well. This writer will do it. Will finish on time. Okay, he got the job, or she got the job, because your work ethic. They know you're not going to be. They know you're not going to be difficult. Or they're going to be. This writer is easy to work with in editing. Those type of things help you. Publishers bring you back and help you get more work. And yeah, it's a big long process, but yeah, treat it like a job if that's what you want it to be. If you want it to be a hobby, again, nothing wrong with that. I know a lot of people that write as a hobby, and they're perfectly happy. And so you just have to decide what you want out of it, and then you can set your goals that way. And you can change those goals later. If you decide doing it as a job just doesn't work for me, switch it up. There's no right or wrong way to do it.
So in a way, the force is strong with this one. Thank you for sharing that with us, Bobby. Now we are going to go into something known as a bit of a few questions here, a bit rapid fire, because this episode, and should I say every episode of And I Quote, is powered by Pod Decks. Pod Decks are the hottest new tool for podcasters looking to have more meaningful conversations or gamify their podcast. Simply shuffle them up, ask a question, let the content roll. Get yours today at poddex.com. Make sure you use the promo code NerdCulture to get 10% off your order. You're not going to want to miss out on that. So, Bobby, to kick this off with our friendly neighborhood Poddex questions for you, a little bit of rapid fire, so we're going to kind of keep you on your feet. If you could send a message to the entire world, what would you say in 30 seconds?
Buy my book. No, everybody keep reading. Yeah, please keep reading.
Simple and to the point. I dig it. Absolutely. Absolutely. So what is the trait you most deplore in yourself?
I'm a procrastinator. It takes me once I get in the seat and start working, I'm okay. The hardest part is getting me to sit down at this desk and get started and not get distracted by YouTube or Facebook or video game, this game or that, Once I get started, I'm okay, but getting there is tough.
Well, if you start to follow Bobby Nash on social media, you'll understand he likes to buy a lot of things and share those latest purchases with his friends, his family, and you, the fan, on his social media. But don't worry, all the links for that are in the description of this video if you want to follow Bobby Nash and his wonderful adventures of whether it's purchasing the next great item to his collection, or he's going on tour to go to a convention as an attendee, or as a vendor to sell his incredible lot of books. Let me just put it to you that way.
Buying the books is kind of one of those ways I celebrate finishing things. It's like, hey, you finished this novel. Great. Let's go buy something.
I was going to say, treat yourself.
Treat myself.
Lord knows you have bought a lot of books in the last several weeks that I've been following you on social media. My gosh, you post these books and I'm thinking, man, you must be finding these things known as diamonds in the rough. My goodness.
Because I'm not a rich man. So I look for deals,
You look for deals. Okay. Hey, listen, there's nothing wrong with it. Just be you, Bobby. You be you. That's all I'm going to leave you with that. So your next question here for you. What do you consider your greatest achievement?
Finishing Evil Ways. Getting Evil Ways published. That was there was a long stretch because it took me 6 months to write it. It took me 6 years to sell it. And then I sold it to a horrible, horrible publisher. So then it took me 7 years to get my rights back. So the fact that I finally got it in a position where I want it and got it out there and it's been read and so getting that book to where I wanted it to be was a hard fought lesson. It learned a lot of lessons about the publishing industry. Even though that first publisher was a horrible, horrible publisher, I had a book in hand that helped me get more work, and I learned a lot. So, but yeah, Evil Ways is definitely.
There you go. Live and learn, right?
Mm-hmm.
So, what characteristic are you most known for?
He talks a lot, I think. I think that's probably it. He won't shut up.
Have you heard that all your life, or was Brian K. Morris the first one to tell you?
No. When I was a kid,
I'm just kidding.
My dad used to tell me, you know that thing between your nose and chin? Yeah, shut that. He's gonna be thrilled to know that got that kind of reaction.
Oh my goodness! What a way to answer that question. Well, we want to take this opportunity to thank crime fiction writer, independent writer, publisher extraordinaire known as Bobby Nash for being our guest on this week's episode of And I Quote. Bobby, any upcoming projects you can tell us about, and where can you or everyone find you on social media?
Sure. Well, we actually I have some books that are finished and in the pipeline, which is exciting. Snowbound Six, Snowdown, God willing, will be out in September, late September, which will then be followed by Series 1, Volume 2, that will collect books 4, 5, and 6 in one volume. There's 2 snow shorts. One should be out in September. One should be out in October. And the sequel to In the Wind, Such a Night, will be out in October. Again, God willing. And there's also other projects. Evil Intent, the next book in that follows the characters from Evil Ways, and also does feature Sheriff Myers in a small role in a couple of chapters. Will be out sometime this year. I don't know when. I've still got to put some work into those. And then I have stuff coming from other publishers. I just don't know dates yet. There's a Secret Agent X novel I wrote. There's 3 Domino Lady stories in the pipeline. There's a Lone Ranger short that's part of an anthology. I don't know when that's coming out. So there's other stuff like that it's out there. I just don't know no dates yet.
Fair enough. Well, once again, thank you very much for being with us here. Bobby Nash, crime fiction writer extraordinaire. If you want to follow him, all those links are in the description of this video. Once again, my name is Ryan of Nerd Culture. You can follow us on all forms of social media simply at It's Nerd Culture. New videos are being posted on our YouTube channel each and every week. And don't miss this very program that you are watching, And I Quote, every Saturday at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So make sure you keep that in the back of your mind. Write it down on a sheet of paper. Put it in your calendar because everyone uses a smartphone these days. Am I right? I hope so. If I'm not, I apologize. But in the meantime, to you, stay healthy, stay strong, stay safe, read books, and also not only check out all the recommendations that Bobby and I tossed your way, but also check out our good friends over at HWWS Web TV. Have a good one, everyone.
I'm D.W. Amateur.
I'm Dina Marie.
I'm Sage Ia.
I'm Thomas Carter Rochester.
Hey, I'm David Thompson.
Hi, I'm Kevin.
And I'm Mia.
Hi, I'm Mark.
Hey there, this is Dave Adams.
Hi, I'm Rosemary Rose.
Jerome Conner here.
Hey guys, it's Josh Bauer.
Willow Schuyler.
I'm Cosplay Michael.
It's your boy Country.
I'm Ryan Permison.
And I'd like to ask you guys,
Please subscribe.
Please subscribe.
Please subscribe.
Please subscribe.
Please subscribe.
please subscribe. Please
Subscribe.
subscribe.
Subscribe. Subscribe.
Please subscribe to HWWS Web TV.
Great bunch of people.
And don't forget to smash the bell.
Ring that bell. Mash that bell.
Hit that bell.
Hit the bell to be notified.
Hit the bell to get notified of new shows
And videos.
You're going to want to do that, so do that soon.
So we can cross that 20,000 mark.
And get us to 100,000 subscribers
To 1 million and 10 million and 100 million.
on HWWS.
Web TV.
You really like it. I guarantee it. Thank you.